Guess we can get started. Good morning, good evening. I'm used to this now. Good morning, good evening, wherever you are, since everyone's everywhere in the world. I think we'll start with a little warm up, just bring some attention to our hands again. Something a little different. I was thinking about doing this warm up during the week, and then this morning I was doing some yoga. I thought it could lead into a nice longer exercise about kind of attention, and where drawing might serve and be helpful in a way of looking at things more mindfully throughout the day, especially during some common things we have to do right now. But I want to start just with a pen or a pencil and coming to attention with our breath and our movement, just focusing on a series of parallel-ish lines. Important that they're really parallel, not just with a piece of paper, a bunch of note cards here, but just use them quickly and a good orientation, and then kind of matching my breath to my movement by trying to draw lines relatively parallel to the paper across the edge. And as I'm not talking, doing it on the out breath. Seeing if I can match some of the speed to my breathing. It doesn't really matter if they're evenly spaced or wiggly. They drift a little bit on one side. How everyone's sitting, the twisted angle, so get some pressure difference there. Just trying to breathe with it and keep my attention on how the tip of the pencil moves with my breath, taking a break to reset between each one. I start to bring some more attention to my hand. Sit up a little bit more. I'll try to move my arm a little bit more and set up my wrist. Adjust the paper. Bring some attention to what's happening with the line. You can see here with this standardish number 2 pencil writing thing that I get some crispness at the end of the beginning. It starts to get pretty fuzzy towards the other side. But it's just a very soft, cheap graphite in there. That's okay, especially for the warm-up. These are good for shading or something, not precision. Maybe give it a little wiggle on purpose, or if you try to use my shoulder more to control. Maybe a little more like a paintbrush, hold it further out. Get a little fast, slow it down with my breath. Maybe if that hand's feeling warmed up, go ahead and switch to my left. See what happens there as well with a few breaths. Knowing that they're probably going to be a little bit different. So I take a lot more intention to move my left hand. Without it having major stutters. Sometimes it can be nice to look away and just draw the line. Play a lot of basketball. Wife worked in the professional basketball world. Watch a lot. I always think of practice we had to do as kids, and having to do a lot of fundamental things to help make them muscle memory or ingrained. There's always a couple of philosophies in terms of what you should practice. Sometimes coach would say, don't practice shots that you're not going to take in a game. So silly things, playing around, don't not funny. I'm just going to keep this same piece of paper going for a little bit. Try any other orientation. But also encountered other coaches that I had thought, well, as long as you spend your time doing this part, right? So like fundamentals, just moving the muscles, coordinating it with the breath until it becomes kind of unminded, so you're not holding things in with tension and just able to, express through that line, then it's probably not such a bad thing to play around and do some other stuff. Well, I'm used to working left to right with my right and right to left with my left. I might try the other way around. Doesn't make a lot of sense from a technical standpoint. I don't want to smear across the page, something like that, but I feel people who are left-handed have to deal with this all the time when I'm writing. Might as well explore it. Even so much as like using the pencil the wrong way for a little bit. Tear the paper, break the pencil. That's okay. Makes us think a little more about what those muscles are doing. What we think of as when we write wrong in terms of techniques could lead to finding something interesting. A few more breaths and movement. Stretch a little bit, warm up the fingers. See, how's everybody doing? I feel weird, there's not a lot of time here, so can't open it up and do a lot of introductions. It could be random every week. Please show that. So. If anyone ever wants to share, right there, have a suggestion, question, feel free. I'll try to watch all the things. So I thought that as I was thinking about lines, it's become such a much more prominent part maybe of our daily lives. There's a lot of time spent more consciously waiting in line these days as we have to manage our distance and manage density and all these things. My job one of my jobs on Saturday mornings for the last 10 months has been to control that line at the farmer's market in Grand Army Plaza. It is a very intense exercise in patience. As you explain the reasoning for it to people. But I was standing yesterday, I had to go get something at the store and standing there waiting. I don't like to pull out my phone in line. I don't like to do it unless I really have something I have to do when I'm in the middle of my work day. I tend to just stand there and try to be as still and as calm as possible. Maybe because lines seem to make people somewhat fidgety and nervous, and maybe by being really still it will help calm things down. And I usually carry some kind of like sketchbook thing around with me. Just thinking, oh, it's a good time just to like do exercises like that. But I thought for this, we could just start drawing what we do or what we think when we wait in line, and seeing what that is. Maybe as a feeling, maybe as an experience of how lines have changed now with all the fun circles or good drawing material, or just where our mind goes when we have that moment where we have to stop and wait for something. Maybe it's a lot about that stillness. I guess I'll leave my thing up and just kind of go with it in my head, try to picture the feeling I'll have while waiting in line and see what I can turn it around into, instead of maybe impatience or anxiousness, into an exercise. So it's a little bit for me, it's finding a place, seeing what everyone else is doing. It's a little bit feeling out, am I really in love? Are we all waiting in line? Who's next? Watching everyone else think about that scenario. There are decisions on it, those decisions or not. And starting to find my place there in line. Set values, own some weight, good position. You start to trace out some of the energy I feel as I hopefully hold some space around myself for myself and not feel crowded, feel calm and confident enough to perhaps ask some people to pay more attention or space out in a nice way. Have a little compassion that it's always confusing if there's not someone there helping it out. We have to help each other and maybe just wait a little longer, wait another turn, even if someone's cutting in line on purpose. I don't think it's too big of a deal. Right, I'm gonna miss anything. And I will manage the line a lot at the farmer's market. Sometimes people don't agree, but often I'm quite fascinated with what happens when something we're not used for a period of time, we're not used to taking, causes sudden attention. And there's kind of these other people, and they sometimes are paying quite a lot of attention. They keep their distance here. And there's others that, through maybe their phone or inattention, suddenly find themselves in this space that feel close to me. And that sudden stop that happens more now. I'm like, oh, yes, I'm here, I'm waiting in line, and like, oops, suddenly we've mingled our space. It is funny because you make a connection a little bit, kind of both realize and agree, oops, and then have to come a little bit closer and more into attention with what's going on in order to readjust that space. Maybe we've been standing there for a while. It feels hard to want to move, give up some of that space. Maybe edges a little bit. Some of these, just letting the pencil work with what's in my mind, thinking about it, I'll find some repetitions, techniques, we like to call them in some of our generative drawing in architecture's department rules. Students have a hard time with those, but they're just the protocols for how you begin to build a language or consistency to something, especially in the abstract, if you're not focusing on representational drawing. But even in a representational drawing, the protocols for the shadows, or the lights, edges, or how it curves end, or the stroke are all, in some sense, rules we set up to follow a pattern. When I begin to find those in these little doodles or sketches, once they emerge, I start to see if I can apply them in more places. Maybe here's the little curly flip. That's a technique. Can I make it more intentional instead of kind of a sketching, finding exercise? Maybe we just have to impose an intention upon it. What we get is what we get. Make the stroke. I like to think it's coming to me more as I think about these exercises and sketch in the journal, that stroke was already there, that line was already there. I'm just giving it shape. And whether it was there by mind or on the paper, ready. Get to see. To investigate what it might mean. I also work in professions a little bit about productivity and efficiency to a high degree. So at some level, it kind of makes me a little happier when the strokes are efficient. But I would like to look at how I can use the same thing, maybe in different conditions or intensities within the drawing. I don't have to worry too much in these type of kind of relaxation exercises or fun little explorations. What it begins to look like. It's really easy to latch on to a metaphor, I think, in the drawing and have that take over. That might be something we look at in some of the sessions. So then a little doodle tension deficited, so I'd start to find new things when I played something out for a while. Think about it. Or when a drawing starts to have enough shape, curve, and line to it that I feel it needs another little bit of a layer. As I go to establish a lot of points, I could keep building this out. Until I can now find some regions for tone within it, or maybe switch mediums in here to see what it can do, and adding a little depth, intensity to the image. There's a lot of regions or shapes that have formed. Maybe I can highlight parts of those. And even when I have a little bit of that sketchy, shifting, kind of exploring drawing, I like to find it and then take it as a consequence and see if I can turn it into something else by giving it a little more weight, a little more intention, and picking it up till I find its language. Here, little shapes, we find the interesting parts of curves and then fill in, soften some of the corners of the perceptions, like little shapes that like to live in the space between lines. And now I've been in that line to get into the grocery store or get coffee. I probably would have forgotten that I was even there to get coffee at this point. Everyone behind me would be a little upset. You can start a day with maybe 10 or 15 minutes of something like this and see if perhaps an idea, a form, a figure, a shape starts to emerge. I find sometimes then they lead to a series of studies, and I happen to find this notebook I just moved recently and picking out some old stuff and getting some paper found out the back. These old drawings drawn this morning. I was thinking, oh wow, what was I doing? These are from 10 years ago. I went on when Instagram first came out. I went around the city and took pictures of flowers, and then print them and crop them down and use them as like starting points for these little topographic studies. And then some of it actually led to other research, or drawing research, I guess, like stuff for architecture, kind of how they're 3D and 2D things, and just a learning of shapes. So this might be one that was no longer based on a starting point, but it came from what I learned through the tracing, like finding other worlds in the drawings, just in the doodles, thinking that maybe these could inform starting points for other projects. But that's what I find a lot of fun and enjoy it, and starting the day with something like this. It starts with creating something instead of maybe consuming something. I like to start reading too, but I find that maybe that puts too much in before I put a little bit out. We have a few minutes left, so if you have something going that's developing into a drawing, just seeing it through, feeling it out. I think mine needs some more. always like to draw through my mistakes. When we teach drafting to our first years, and they'll come with a little mechanical eraser or the electric eraser. You don't need that. You need it at the end when you have to fix little things. But when you're drawing, you accidentally put the line here, you meant to put it here. It's okay. Just put the one you meant to put it in a little bit more intensely and keep going. By the end, that first line will either disappear or become something else. When we do very mechanical drafting exercises, my lights. Like this, everything has to line up, find these points, but in the end, it's really just the ones that become dark that we see and that we value. So the others, if you have a little error around, will go away. It's a lot faster for drafting. Drafting takes a lot of time. If you try to erase every mistake, just ends up taking all night. And I'd rather have you get more done as a student than spend time erasing. I hope everyone's ready for a midweek journey. And thank you for joining. Yeah, great to see you. Yeah. Have a good rest of the day. Thank you.